So I was talking to the one of the dopey gooners who works here, senior gooner, earlier, and he said he was at the game yesterday, and he said it was a really happy atmosphere at the game. They changed the song they've got for Mikel Arteta. They changed tweaked the lyrics slightly from Champions League to Europa League.
Right.
And they're okay with that. And the way they're justifying it is by saying, for the team's progression, for where they're at now, probably one step too far, Champions League. So, yes, it's okay to go in the Europa League. You're forgetting, you came behind Spurs in a race they couldn't win. What a massive failure from Arsenal. From where they were, it's a massive failure.
Well, that's the way you look at it, Aid. I disagree. I actually think that where they finished, and I'm analysing everything now, where they finished is, I think, right for them. Had they got into the Champions League, let me tell you, they wouldn't have been able to make a significant impact on that. I think that they have clearly made a decision at the club to go with a younger group of guys, with a younger coach, and to build something and that takes some time. I think they've improved on last season. I think clearly the younger players, a lot of them have got better, and I think they're in a decent position next year. The Champions League they couldn't win next year. The Europa League they could win.
Why would they want to win that?
Why would they want to win the Europa League? How about to get in the Champions League?
What makes you think they could... Actually, there's a bigger question. What makes you think... What gives you any kind of confidence they could win the Europa League?
Because I've just seen Rangers come within a whisker of doing it.
Well, Rangers have got some spirit.
They got some good players. Well, Arsenal got some... Listen, Aid, because they lost a few matches, right? And they blew a few matches, and they did. Yeah. I'll admit to you. Yes, they did.
Yeah.
They blew a few matches. They also beat Chelsea, beat United, beat West Ham in a week. In 7 days, right? Prior to those matches, they lost.
Right.
They've had some good results. They show all the traits and all the hallmarks of a young team. Arsenal, to me, right? But a young team, I think, that are going in the right direction. Different if you've got a young team that are going south, going in the wrong direction. They are definitely travelling in the right direction.
Well, not for the last few weeks of the season. They weren't, because they were, middle of March, they beat Leicester and they're fourth in the table. Not just fourth in the table, they're 6 points ahead of Spurs and end up finishing behind them. That is not travelling in the right direction. And let's just analyse those games that you're talking about, and let's put it into real context, okay? Because when did Arsenal fail? When were the really big results that did for them? Away to Spurs, Newcastle,
really poor.
Palace,
yeah.
Okay. What have those three got in common? All on those nights, on those days, they played those games, massive atmosphere, home fans were right on form and really created something passionate and noisy and very special that those Arsenal players simply couldn't handle. They started crying, basically. They couldn't cope with it. And you talk about some of the games they won, right? Chelsea.
Yeah.
The ground was nowhere near full because of the sanctions.
What's that, Matt? That's not
because they could cope in that atmosphere. But
hang on a second.
Hang on a second.
Are so affected by 20,000 as opposed to 40.
So you get to any stage of Champions League or Europa League, and they're going to crumble because they can't cope with a crowd that makes noise. They know at the Emirates there's never going to be any proper noise because there's no atmosphere there whatsoever. West Ham, they were in between Europa League semi-final legs. They had other things to think about. United, I mean, what? They beat United is a big so what in my book. United are awful. I mean, I'm looking at that thinking you've not persuaded me in any way that Arsenal are likely in any way to go deep even into the Europa League. No. Never going to happen, mate. They haven't even got remotely a fraction of what Rangers have had this season. Did you see the Rangers semi-final at Ibrox? Do you think they could create that at the Emirates?
Well, who knows?
I know.
No, you don't know.
No, I do know.
You don't know.
Can you imagine even thinking that you could create that at the Emirates? Right. When has there been has there ever been an atmosphere like that at the Emirates since it was built?
There's been. I tell you what. This season I've been there a lot, and I've definitely noticed this season that. And I remember with Jim Proudfoot doing a game. I can't remember off the top of my head. I can't remember exactly which one it was right now. But feeling that they've turned the corner, the fans have turned the corner, that they're kind of on board and that they're with it now. Now, they will no doubt be disappointed, Aid. Of course they're fed up that they weren't quite able to get there. But they weren't ready to get there. If the truth be known, they weren't good enough to get there. But fifth is not failure for them. Fifth is not failure. To say it's failure from eighth is not failure. That is totally illogical what you're saying. To be eighth last year and fifth this year, you can't say they've got worse.
Correct. I agree that. But at the point where you're thinking it's in their hands, Champions League football, that's failure. They bottled it,
Man
basically.
City were 90 seconds away from getting to a Champions League final, Aid, and they, blew it, bottled it, did they?
Absolutely.
They
They did. Of course they did. What else did they do?
No, you ain't even
What
got time
else
to
did
bottle
they
it.
do?
You ain't got time to bottle it in 90 seconds. You know what I mean? It's football. It happens.
Yeah, but
happens.
it happens a lot to Arsenal.
It's not. Well, it has that, but this is a newer Arsenal. It's a different Arsenal.
Is it? What, they bottled it again?
No, but...
And let me tell you something else, right? And this is the startling stat I mentioned at the top of the show, right? Bukayo Saka, for me, I'm a big fan.
So he's a bottle job, is he?
No, he has to leave. He has to leave Arsenal for the good of his career, though.
Stop it.
No. Hear me out. Hear me out on this. He's 20 years old, okay? This season, he's played 48 games, all competitions. He's played in all 38 Premier League games, starting 36 of them. Mm-hmm. And he's 20 years old. This is frighteningly similar to Jack Wilshere's stats in the season that basically ruined his career. He didn't play a single game the following season because of injury, Jack Wilshere, because they played him too much when he was that age. So for me, Bukayo Saka's got to be at a football club that isn't
playing Phil Foden too much.
Yeah, but he's in and out, isn't he? And he's coming off the bench.
He's out.
He's coming off the bench. He's playing a lot, but he's played a lot. They've steadily brought him in. Bukayo Saka, I think he's still played less than 100 games in his career. And from middle of last season, not this season just gone, the one before, middle of last season where, it would be a surprise if he was in, he suddenly burst onto the scene and now they can't leave him out. They can't rotate him. He's always in the team. Now,
because he's one of their better players.
Yeah, but he's still young. They're not looking after him properly. You need a bit of rest. You need to bring him out of the team every now and then. Last 4 or 5 games, he's faded, okay? And I totally understand that. I'm not going to go at him. He's faded because he's been played too much.
I don't think you can compare a Bukayo Saka situation to a Jack Wilshere. Their makeup is totally different. Body's totally different, right? And for totally different reason, Jack obviously had his injuries. They play in a different part of the field, etc., etc. So you can't just say because Wilshere was played from a younger age, all of a sudden they should have took greater care and it's going to happen to others. You can say that about any young player, right? You can say that about any young player you like.
Starts 36 of 38, comes off the bench in the other 2. That to me is overplaying a player.
He's now one of their better. He's now one of their most responsible players.
Yeah, I know, but he shouldn't be at the age of 20. That's my point. And if you think about this summer, they're not going to be able to sign any players in that position because they need 2 strikers possibly. They probably need cover for both fullback positions because Kieran Tierney's always injured. Tomiyasu's good, but beyond that, are you really going to go with Cedric for the whole season? I personally think they need another centre-back and another centre-mid. They're in those positions where Bukayo Saka can play, in that position where he does play, they're not going to be looking to sign anybody in that position. So they're thinking, yeah, he's in for 38 games again. So, and he may well be okay, and heaven forbid that something happens to him. I really hope nothing happens to him. And he's not being overplayed, and his body can cope.
I don't see any reason why it should. He's now been around long enough to know, right? He's experiencing what it takes to play for a big club and having the responsibility of trying to get yourself out there every week. I tell you what, Bukayo Saka would have played this season when he's not 100% right, and I admire kids like that. Rather than having those sat on the bench who don't even want to play, a lot of young lads nowadays, let me tell you. Whereas this boy, so he wants to get out there every week. That is not a crime. And nor should Mikel Arteta wrap him up in cotton wool every week, thinking and worrying about where he's going to be when he's 30 years of age. That you don't do, No manager's going to do that. Nobody should do that either.
We're going to have to agree to disagree on Bukayo Saka and I'm an England fan who wants him ready and fresh for England because he's going to be picked for England as well.
Of course he is.
And
so are you saying Gareth shouldn't pick him because he had a hard season?
Yeah, but I'm thinking right in saying that he had to pull out of the last England squad. So that's not healthy for him because I know for a fact he wants to be playing for England, loves playing for England, wants to be in and around that. So where's he better off? Is he better off at Arsenal where he is playing every single game, every minute he can possibly play, or at a club like Manchester City who can rotate him? I'm not saying Man City are going to go in for him. I think he's good enough for them, by the way. But what would be better for his career? Me personally, I know the Arsenal fans will say they want to keep him and he's going to stay and he loves Arsenal and all that stuff. But what's best for his career is the question. And let me go back to that game against Leicester where they beat Leicester 2-0. They were 4th in the table, 6 points ahead of Tottenham. This was on 13th of March. Mikel Arteta said Arsenal are, quote, obliged to be playing Champions League football. That's the word he used. They're not playing Champions League football. What was the big difference between Spurs and Arsenal this season? The manager.
If a manager turns round, when was that? When did he make that quote?
Middle of March.
If he turns around in the middle of March and goes, do you know what? It doesn't matter if we don't get there. Right, he gets slaughtered. I'm not going to beat anyone up if we don't get it, if we're not playing Champions League football next year. No coach is going to say that. You can't say that. You always have to keep on.
Yeah, but what does it mean? What does it mean, though? He said we have to be there. We should be there.
Yeah.
Our history obliges to be there, but we're not there yet. There are still a lot of games to play. They're not there. So what does that mean? Is he going to stick his hands up and say, I'm not good enough for this job?
No, he won't say that at all. The crux of this matter is that you don't believe that they're going forwards, do you?
I don't believe they'll be able to cope with Thursday and Premier League as well. I do not believe they'll be able to cope with that.
Well, we'll see about that. They've clearly got to invest this summer. They've got to spend some good money. I happen to think they're going in the right direction. And I think that what Rangers did this year should inspire anyone, should give everyone belief that they, at the start of the season, would Rangers have believed they could get to a Europa League final? No, they would not.
They've got something special, though.
Right, well, they've got something special, so they've got good luck to them.
You can't magic that up. That happens once in a while. It's happened this season for Rangers.
What have they got that's so special and so different? Tell me.
I described it earlier this season as intangible. After that semi-final second leg, when I was at Ibrox and experienced it, I've never experienced anything like it. Never. And it was like the fans were playing. And you're never going to get that at the Emirates. It's just not going to happen. Never happened at the Highbury Library. Ain't going to be happening at the Emirates anytime soon. And here's the thing. Spurs had half a season off and still finished above Arsenal. So just bear that in mind. Let that sink in, Gooners. While you're all happy to be in the Europa League and proud of your team for finishing behind Spurs.